at the moment, I don't see too much hope. I see the whip handle is held by the psychopaths, the blackmail cult, which is incredibly powerful, that binds them all together in self-loathing of each other and crime, that sees them be excessively predatory but very loyal, because the consequence of coming out on any truths was likely to see them lose their lives. Actually, to not think that a group of people would seek to have an asymmetric aspect of knowledge and keep knowledge from the rest, and to use it to exploit, leverage, and manage millions of others through this asymmetry of power, information, knowledge, etc., is not to know human nature and the nature of psychopaths. And unfortunately, those seeking power will do anything, no matter how evil, to have it. And, I have principles. I'm not that interested, but it's a sad thing to see and to participate in, and not to be currently able on your own, but maybe with others in time, we can turn the ship around. But we have to stop paying taxes to pedophiles and criminals and frauds. And, you need to start playing the system with its own tools.
Welcome to Discourse with Christian. I'm your host, Christian White, and today is, of course, a returning guest, Francis Hunt, also known as the Market Sniper, of course. Francis, how you been? Thanks for carving out the time.
Absolute pleasure always, Christian. How's your audience? Wishing them all well. Glad to be back with you.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of things going on around in the world. Particularly, it looks like Trump went from a 50-day countdown window to reach an agreement with like Moscow, and then it looks like it's been cut to like 10 days. Hear a lot of talk about things escalating with a WW3 kind of scenario. But I figured we'd kind of start out, maybe perhaps your current thoughts on that, and then we'll segue to other macro things.
Yes. So I think generally most of us pay way too much attention to the kabuki theater that is presented to us by our political overlords that are actually not really people that are doing the work, but are actually frontmen for a permanent government that exists behind them, that have had a much longer cycle agenda that has been running for a long time. You mentioned, say, for example, the Epstein files. Anyone who saw any level of what's actually happened there should realize that essentially the United States and most of the other countries of the world, I would say all to varying degrees, are their politicians, essentially, those people that you think are the end decision makers, and that are wearing the cuff of power for 4 years before handing it over, are actually essentially blackmailed into a certain, call it a cult if you want, the Freemasonry, Kabbalah, whatever the case may be, but the Israeli Mossad is clearly behind Epstein. Anyone who's looked at the facts deeply, and I would point, this isn't my take, I'd point to the likes of Whitney Webb and many others. You can see who funds and finances the people. They're all similar profile. And unfortunately, we are living in a world where there's quite a lot of inherent sleeper cells and Trojan aspects that are controlling the people you think have the power. So most of what you see that involves these frontmen, the real power doesn't want you to know its face, doesn't want it to know how much it's worth, and lives in secrecy whilst wanting you to have absolutely none and have full surveillance over you to ascertain if you're a threat, if you've paid enough tax, if there's something that they could bring lordship, lawfare, which is very much like warfare, only legalese, down upon your head. So when we see, for example, you saw supposedly Trump having a big win over Europe, and you saw, if you actually thought detailed contracts were being negotiated by those two people, and they'd spent the whole day, haggling over the deal details, I think largely, I would say you're being fooled by the act. These are the people that are presenting a certain persona, and the ones they've trained for. So Trump trained for art of the deal, Mr. No BS, I want nothing less than, the tough negotiator and all of that. And he'll interview like that. And he had chance to practice being that no BS guy on The Apprentice, firing people that weren't up to standard and telling people how it needs to be. And he moved on from one role to a different role. And it's all acting and it's a role. This is a much more bigger role, but he isn't running America. Trump doesn't run America. Permanent governance does that. Doesn't matter on the electoral cycle, and how you vote is actually almost immaterial. Many will go, but Biden was terrible, but we had all of that. Yeah, the dark government pivots their agenda in a zigzag like this, and synchronizes it with the electoral cycle on who they know will be next. So they advanced the cultural subversion, which was transhumanism, transphobia, all of these things under Biden. And now they're advancing the surveillance finance state ever further. That's not to say that wasn't also happening under Biden as well. So I don't have a dog in this fight, but Palantir, the Genius Bill, all of these things are being directed away from the detail and the power that is given. They're essentially making legal. And these are the kind of times where criminality, the difference between something that is moral and something that is legal, the chasm between these two concepts is getting so broad that you can't see the ends of my hands anymore. And where essentially suppression, totalitarianism, intrusion becomes legalized, and truth and freedom seeking actually becomes illegal. You don't have a permit for that. How can you leave your 15-minute city? All of this tells you that we are in end stage of a full upload of globalized Marxism, which is essentially communism worldwide. And actually, it's the West that needs to have the Marxism imposed, and that's why the West is finding it's having the worst of the outrage headlines. The United Kingdom, for example, immigrants stabbing and raping and being relieved, being told cultural differences, no sentence, and Haiti words on social media, seeing prison sentences for indigenous people, two-tier. This is all direct and specifically planned provocation of a certain group of people at the expense of another. And it is asymmetry. I always say symmetry is beauty. The best models always have very equal and even faces if you compare the left half and the right half. Symmetry is beauty, and the same applies to laws and everything else. Anytime there's an asymmetry, you have a prejudice. And there's a great prejudice going on in many places, in many ways. And unfortunately, we are already in a bit of a communist world, I'm afraid. There's lots of things you can't do with freedom anymore. And it's going to get worse. They're tightening their grip. So we're going to have an orchestrated financial crash, which is not too far away. I think we're going to have a very bumpy August, September, October. And you have to ask yourself how prepared you are for that. And by the way, it sounds already very doomer, very horrible, but actually you were born for these times, and this is what you're going to get. So make the most of it and be a leader. Live every day like it's your last. Love, breathe, talk, help, support. Live by a principle, because unfortunately the unprincipled have got the power lever and they want absolute control. And Bolshevik communism is uploading, and it's a very brutal thing. If you ask the Russians of 1915 through to 1919, if you ask China post the Opium Wars from these same mercantilist forces under Mao, if you ask Pol Pot in Cambodia and all of these places, communism is brutal, and it's a genocidal brutality that goes with it. And we are seeing genocide in Gaza, and we're seeing genocide and not being concerned about the fact that we all can see that's happening and not having a problem with it. There'll be no one screaming for us if it ever comes our way. And so that's quite a dark set of circumstances, but we all get to walk our path, And some people get a very brightly lit road, and some of us have, sometimes some generations have to stumble a lot more in the dark, and we'll get better at it, and we'll cope, and we'll make the most of it. But I don't think we're stopping it anytime soon.
I know you've mentioned about frontmen and political leaders and people, obviously not possessing the real power. A common theme I've been asking guests on lately, Francis, is who, how would you describe the power structure, and who do you feel is the head of the snake of all this?
So the interesting thing is we are always encouraged to think in nation states. So they siloize, this, America this, Russia bad, China bad, whatever the case may be. And actually, there's just humanity. Humanity's everywhere, and most people wake up every day and they don't start their day trying to want to destroy somebody else's day in another side of the planet. So we shouldn't nation state things. You have to look at the horizontal that runs across the top of all those vertical silos. And it's the same group of people. So if you study your history, you'll see the Club of Rome, the Council of 300, the CFR, the MI5, MI6, Secret Services, the recruiting grounds of Cambridge and Oxford, Harvard in America, maybe Massachusetts, MIT, for example. You will see they are all very afraid of the Zionist axis. So you can see that the ADL and APAC largely fund, I think it's a well over 80% of all your sitting senators and political forces. And part and parcel of that contract is you don't BDS, which is boycott Israel or criticize Israel. So inherently, there's clearly a funding mechanism that sees America be subservient to a much smaller nation. But it's not only America, it's all the nations, unfortunately. And there's a supremacist ruling class that want to exploit that. And we're part of their ant farm or the cattle. And, CV-19, you can decide what you want, but that was a genocide. It was a globalized genocide. And they aren't done. And every Bolshevik revolution has involved a genocide in China, in the killing fields of Cambodia. So that's what communism does. And you should be continually preparing yourself to avoid being on that list so that you survive and have the life experience you deserve. Whether we can stop that, I don't think we can. Who's behind it? Well, I've given enough clues. There's a lot of isms that you can't criticize, and those usually the powers that you can't criticize, to the point that they make it illegal in certain countries. And so to question certain history is illegal in certain countries tells you who those parties may be. There's a meme with everyone with those cool Tibetan hats with the rope and strings. And they say, oh, there's all the politicians wearing the Tibetan or Peruvian, I think it was, Peru. They're all in Peru putting their hands to the temple. You're not allowed to criticize the Peruvians. And it's kind of a meme joke that is pointing a finger at a different nation than Peru in terms of who holds the power over your country. And, to know who rules you is to understand the situation. The question then becomes, what do you do about it? And that's what I'd like to talk about, more what we can do about it. But a lot of people don't even understand why are they unlucky, why all these curtailments on their freedoms, why is the debt market collapsing, why is their dollar buying them less, all of these things. So the understanding of money and power is a study that everyone should undertake to truly get to how we are where we are, and possibly what you can do to preserve some quality of life in an environment where we actually have an attack vector, a predatory group that sees us as the prey.
Yeah, I had on Michael Yon last night. I haven't released it yet. Spoke to him for about 4 hours, and of course, he's been, for those who don't know, he's a combat correspondent, photographer, writer, etc. It's been a lot of shows, and we kind of dived into this a bit, Francis, and I just wanted to comment and say that it sounds so unfathomable that because you're not the first to say about, and I'll bring up COVID vaccine real quick. Not that I want this to be the mainstay, but I just find it fascinating how so many people, and granted, I do have a lot of people that tend to be more libertarian and kind of things of that nature, not into collectivism for sure, say the same thing. And I hear a lot of other things about little cults and just pedo stuff, just weird stuff that sounds very fringe, but it keeps being brought up. So it does seem, yeah, there is a outright evilness, and it again, it sounds kind of cuckoo, but I guess when you're up in those certain power structures, you see yourself as different, and
Yeah, and predatory in some of the most despicable ways, some of which you just alluded to, and there's a spiritual element to it, and it's pretty violent, and it's pretty sick, and I don't want to overdwell on that because it can just take the tone, but there's really some people that have a terrible existence and a very short lives as infants, and we are almost lucky to have got where we are, and we need to make the most of it, and we need to live our best lives, and we need to ensure that people wake up to the reality and also do the best they can to undermine this system, not overly fund this system, and to build communities without this parasite in them. And that's our big goal. But it's a very sad that the world got to this place, and many evangelical Christians will, for example, start talking about end of times and rapture and a lot of things. I think you might be sold some space story of someone coming from space to attack us, and we all got to we be in this together, and time for the whole world to band together, the breakdown of national boundaries so they can have a new world order. The World Health Organization, despite atrocious cost of life brought about by the intrusive medical experimentation that they waved through in 2019, that has killed absolute millions, people I know, and maimed and harmed many others, and that did nothing to protect anybody from what was a flu variation that we all would have eventually developed immunity from. Those people have just had their contracts approved, and a swathe of most of the Western nations are all on board. So they now have more power to enforce, by legalese, not morality, potential death on you. So legally, they could have another pandemic and have another cure, which is even more lethal than the one before. And by refusing it, you could have it enforced upon you. So having multiple passports, being able to shapeshift from one geographical zone to another might be useful, but at the same time, this agenda is very coordinated, and there's less cracks and arbitrage to be played with in the system. So most people don't realize they're in a war at all. They don't realize that they're in a war, and they don't realize that their government are low level, middle ranking to low ranking junior management in the structure of delivering a reduced population, all in the name of green, which is largely a hoax. In terms of that, you can look at the alleged European deal with Trump, whereby Europe's local neighbor, Russia, had a pipeline and was all on land, very close, shares same border, Russia and Europe, pumping at a low cost LNG, in fact, gas directly. That pipeline was blown up in an act of terrorism against infrastructure of another nation by America and assets and colluding nations. And now Europe is to buy liquid natural gas that has been pressurized into a liquid, bottled up in Houston in a specialist ship, and shipped across the Atlantic. By the way, those ships don't travel with batteries. They burn grease, recycled. Our Bob market is recycled. The bottom tar of the oil, the lowest distillate value, is an absolute grease burner. So it's not even diesel, it's dirtier than diesel that they burn to drive that same energy from the other side of the Atlantic to Europe, only to be again at Rotterdam unloaded, all of that. So if they preach green but do deals that aren't reflecting green, then you should know green is for you. The watermelon communism is from them to you, but they'll fly their dogs to Davos on private jets. They will, not wear masks when the cameras aren't rolling. They'll do all the things that they want to do, and they want full license to do them, whilst telling you, you should have more windmills and you should be in a 15-minute city where you do all your stuff. You don't really need to travel. Here's some virtual goggles and a movie for you to watch of what it's like to run on a beach. So if you want to know that there's a supremacist ruling class, these things should be giving you the heads up. And you've got to come to the inevitable conclusions that a number of logical questions, one after another, get to. Do I have those level of rights? And who are they preaching to about greenness? And what are they doing about it themselves? And you'll find that they are deeply not green, regularly chartering boats, which burn an immense amount of oil and diesel, and cruise liners. In fact, I think they said the top 9 of these levitating, what are they? The boats that do all the Greek islands and all of them burn and create more carbon in the atmosphere than all of Europe's cars. They're incredibly powerful. They churn around. They're massive by weight, but the numbers are vast. So actually, man-made carbon dioxide is a very small fraction of all carbon dioxide. We need carbon dioxide for the trees to survive, and the green agenda is a hoax. It's watermelon communism. It's a manner by which bad science intentionally has been twisted, rising sea levels and all of these things. We've got pictures of, jetties and things since 200 years ago, where the water level is barely much different than it is today. And all the narratives have been spun and are largely just a lie. But it's an ability to assert greater Marxist, Bolshevik, communist rules and restrictions on you that will take away freedoms and your right of movements and all forms of things, whether you eat a steak or not, instead of crushed locusts, is all determined by them. So you are seeing a polarization of society into this Marxist ruling classes and everyone else. And I'm here to suggest you're probably in the category of everyone else.
Could you talk about perhaps some of the other conversations that you're having with perhaps big contacts? I mean, obviously not like intimate details. I don't expect you to share that, but I mean, just like other themes and other parts of the world or other topics that are very alarming to you that you'd like to share with the audience.
Well, the pandemic treaty approval is a massive one. The Palantir is going to become the next NVIDIA, by the way, in some ways, I suspect. The crazy thing about your US politicians is that they're all on a couple of $100,000 salary a year, odd, yet they're all decky and multi-millionaires. How did they do all that? And of course, they're all insider trading. They're cheating on you. They'll buy companies that the same government are approving to award contracts to on data and everything else. I think they're more than double this year. Palantir, the bill and the Genius bill basically is a dragnet scrape of all of your data, biometrics, so many things, footprints, what you surf and web on, every single detail, what your phone hears you say, what your TV listening to you says, what you think, what you search for. It is a data dragnet harvesting mechanism. Not that Snowden and WikiLeaks shouldn't have already made you aware of that, but this is the weaponization and sale and use for government systems of you, for which your taxes paid for those companies to get contracts to oppress you. Think about that for a moment. You've been paying for your own prison. You've been paying for your own future prison, that these people are weaponizing, marketing, and selling data off. The most benign part of it is letting people sell to you and what you do. But, you know, WhatsApp geolocation for assassination of Palestinians by Israeli fighter planes, and all of this stuff is going on. And what you think is far away in a desert someplace, and a lower culture civilization than yours, they're not. That can't ever come for you in your plush vehicle and nice house. It's a chronic mistake. Legalese and morality, it's never been further apart. Government will make it illegal, will make truth illegal and tell you what the new truth is, which will, of course, be their orchestrated lie. And people have to understand that and realize that you're going into a duality world, a duality of ruling class over serf, a duality of where you say one thing to government, but you believe or assess something else. And that's what the Russians lived through in Bolshevism. That's what Mao brought in China. That's what Pol Pot brought in Southeast Asia. And many other examples where communism exists. And you need to think about the leaders like the new Argentinian head that is currently privatizing all Argentina's water, and all the money from Israel that's alleged to be actually buying and owning those privatized companies that are in the process. Privatization is often how they take away an asset that effectively belongs to a nation and its people and turn it into a vehicle, an equity vehicle that they then sell on the cheap to their insider friends and certain nation states for bungs and hand cutbacks and kickbacks, basically selling the family silver that doesn't belong to them, that belongs to the people, to strangers that are offering to pay them money for the act of treason. And boy, are you seeing treason across the board in your political actors in terms of not working in the interests of the country and the people that live there. That's where we're at in this world right now.
That's a really interesting point that you make, Francis. I remember hearing about some of the tech oligarchs and things of the nature. You hear about technocracy and how and something that I've observed is a lot of people, a lot of these big names that we hear. You hear the story of, well, they worked little Jimmy worked really hard and he got this. And there's no doubt that, working hard increases your surface area of luck, hands down. But I also recognize there's other forces at play. I don't know if it was Adam Smith who said the invisible hand, but there is definitely an invisible hand, so to speak, where people get aided, or gatekeepers. Like, look, when I do my show, sometimes I got to go deal with these gatekeepers. I get rejected a lot more than the audience knows, but I also get some great people like Francis on. I think it's interesting that you bring that point up, that there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than what is portrayed optically. And it's this lie, I think, that's put out there, especially in the West, where if you just work hard, you get your good grade, you do what you need to do, it's going to be great for you, little Jimmy. And that's just a flat out lie.
I'd agree with 100% of what you just said there. And I'd also say, unicorns all in Californian basements, dorms, or garages. The only thing unicorn about them is that they had a bottomless overdraft to scale out on a degree that you and I could never get the borrowings to emulate. Eventually, if you build out the biggest server farms and the biggest and the best and the equipment, and no one ever cares that your company never makes a profit, and you end up getting the defense of the government handing you long-term contracts for their secret stuff to be put on there, and the CIA and the FBI and the Pentagon and military this, military that are all on your Amazon server space, your AWS, your everything else, and you ran for 2 decades without ever making a profit, and you were declaring nothing but running losses. Who was giving you the cash to maintain operations that you're running such excessive losses all the time? And probably an accounting fraud or two, which, by the way, NVIDIA was found out for in its early part of its life as well. So, there's insider trading, there's corruption, there's cacocracy is rife, absolutely rife for the insider class to build exceptional wealth at the cost of the many. And it is a cost to you when someone front runs and does that, even though it looks like a victimless crime. What is actually happening is other people are getting the cream all the time and no one else is getting any real milk at all. And it is a crowding out of the resources into the statists' hands, the paid flunkies and intermediaries of a military industrial complex, a pharmaceutical industrial complex, a fake news media industrial complex, a distraction narrative industrial complex. I mean, the whole game. I come to question what's real, what was ever organic in our lives before all of this. But yeah, there probably are some things, but the more and more I'm open to the fact that they've been stage managing way more than we even can perceive. And we're at a critical stage right now where it's going to break cover again. And CV19 was a huge break of cover. We warned. And let me tell you, one of the best ways to hurt someone's physiologically is to get something under your skin. Your skin's your biggest organ, and it's your first line of defense. Injectables through the skin are how you induce directly into the bloodstream. This is not a drawbridge that you should have down very often. Blood transfusion if you've had a serious accident, a very serious infection that your body can't cure, maybe in an extreme case if you've been bitten or stung by something, but people should not be getting into your bloodstream anything. Your body is a beautiful and divine immune system, and the creation, and there is a creator for sure, in my opinion, did an exceptional job, and that it is a self-healing mechanism. And in fact, even the concept of aging and celebrating birthdays is a bit of a ritual. Happy birthday to you, a mundane and robotic response to an annular, a cycle and a new gematria of numbers. We don't need to focus on that. We should escalate, not age. There's a lot of spell-based things of sing along, make a fuss over someone that we don't even have to be putting too much energy in. And I don't say that as someone who's now short a few hair follicles and looking the wrong side of 50. I say just generally, we should be focusing on the fact that great living, healthy living could extend our lives. Toxicity is part and parcel of the food industrial complex, which in America is particularly bad, by the way, but not solely bad. It's universally we're being poisoned. And we've got to push back against this and extend our life and extend our experience and try to live a life of principle and example, even if it sounds futile, because you'll inspire others to have an experience, a life, and to be principled. And that's the best thing you can do. And if there is any goodness, if there is any supernatural force, well, maybe one day they'll intervene. At the moment, I don't see too much hope. I see the whip handle is held by the psychopaths, the blackmail cult, which is incredibly powerful, that binds them all together in self-loathing of each other and crime, that sees them be excessively predatory but very loyal, because the consequence of coming out on any truths was likely to see them lose their lives. They often swear this. It's in Freemasonry. You try or act a murder of someone that will, let secrets break. The cultism is sad. And actually to not think that a group of people would seek to have an asymmetric, remember my comments about symmetry, an asymmetric aspect of knowledge and keep knowledge from the rest, and to use it to exploit, leverage, and manage millions of others through this asymmetry of power, information, knowledge, etc., is not to know human nature and the nature of psychopaths. And unfortunately, those seeking power will do anything, no matter how evil, to have it. And I have principles. I'm not that interested, but it's a sad thing to see and to participate in, and not to be currently able on your own, but maybe with others in time. We can turn the ship around, but we have to stop paying taxes to pedophiles and criminals and frauds. And you need to start playing the system with its own tools, and try get a nation of 300 million in America to get second passports, not to give up their. In fact, in America's case, you have to give up your passport because you're globally responsible for tax, and build their life outside. Most people are too inert, and that inertia and that failure to see what's coming is the reason why, unfortunately, the normies will be handing the power and the control back to the psychopaths, and why those that are awake are in the car, can see the car accident, but have no reach to reach the steering wheel. And as a result, we are passive observers, and we're having an experience. And maybe there's a better experience on the other side of this, but let's make the most. Let's stand on principle, and let's just be the best human being we can be in these times. And yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. It's really that bad. But at the same time, I'm going to enjoy life to the damnedest while I still have some freedom, while I still have some wealth that hasn't been confiscated or leveled away from me. And that's all we can do. That's the world. That's it. That's the story. And anybody who thinks you're crazy, man, or you're a doomer, or you specifically want to be blackpilled, or no, it's where we're at. Study power and history and money. Study what's going on. See the power that the transnational organization, from the World Health Organization, to United Nations, to all of these people that saying, oh, we have to do this. Oh, it's a green agenda, that, all of these things, trans agenda, all of these things, that they are prioritizing people that are self-mutilating their sexual organs to change gender. This is a mental issue. It's not a physical issue. This was pushed, of course, in the Weimar Republic days in Berlin by the same people that was wanting to bring communism into Germany. It's what was rebutted by then Nazism. That's not to say either weren't funded by the same people as part of escalating us to this point where we now have a globalized version that is uploading. But just be moral, just be principled, and live your best life. And our YouTube channel is all about trading, building wealth, and enjoying your life, and not being on the screens all the time, not day trading, investing where truth exists. Because the amazing thing about truth is it's kind of like gravity. Say, take gold, for instance. If they're cheating, like frauds with derivatives, which are proxies for real money, like dollar notes and Eurozone notes, eventually their fraud is exposed, and that's why you see gold go up. Because the other cheats know what to see. The cheats in China know how the cheats in America are cheating, and they know how to protect themselves from that. So the cheats out themselves, and truth does leak. It continues to leak, like the Epstein files, like the price of gold, like many things. And we should just keep aligning with that which represents truth and principle. That's all. That's all. And live our best existence, and accept life is an experience, good and bad, and you will have good days and bad days. And there are good people and very bad people, and they're very good people. And decide who you want to be and stand on it. Don't choose the winning team, choose the right team. There's a massive difference. And then maybe, despite all the odds, the right team wins out in the end. And all those friends of convenience that cuddled up to Stockholm syndrome to the powers that be will be exposed for never having principle and just following the great power where they thought there would be a winner. And that's who we can be. That's the difference between right and evil. You just decide who you are. That's it.
I know you got to pivot here, so I'll keep it very brief, and I'll just comment on what I have observed, and then if you care to share any last thoughts before we wrap up the show. Given everyone I've had on, it seems that things are going to come to a head kinetically at some point, like very high probability. Presumably, things could start to kick off next month or sometime next year, but it's looking like, short of something divine, there will be some type of kinetic strikes that go on, and then we're going to see the economic fallout and things of that nature. And then I assume that's when there'll be the reset. Do you more or less agree with that?
Yes, and I think the rules, what the Hegelian dialectic is overused by these criminals. And essentially, they're going to create a problem so large that everybody's reaction is going to be so extreme and obviously painful, I would imagine, whether it be food. They love to starve people, by the way. They've also been buying up a lot of farmland. So the Bolsheviks saw starvation, Mao, the killing fields, again, all the same places I mentioned. They also love to drug people, the opium wars, make you an addict so that they extract every penny you can steal, because the heroin addicts turn into thieves and criminals because of the power of the addiction. So you should watch for those things. And you get such a big reaction out of the pain that the people will sign up for any solution you put in front of them. So I think we're going to have a manufactured set of freak out events. And unfortunately, August, September, October is very good timing. They love that time period for that. And we had September 19, we had the repo mark problems that triggered the bringing forward of the March 2020 lockdown, which actually you already knew in December, January, what the theme was going to be by then. And then, of course, you got the lockdowns, which is freedom removal. That was a temporary test. These things are always drills. They escalate each time. So you seize power by degree, like a man climbing up a rope. Each time higher up, you're grabbing and tighter. So that solution is going to be a draconian contract of very, very, very surveilled money in the form of a CBDC, which is potentially like a stable coin that can die, that they can take away, that will monitor carbon passports, what you buy, scores will be racked up, AI bots will be adding up and telling you you've hit an alert, you've met your limit on XYZ. So that solution will be a different kind of life that they'll contractually all get you to vote for. And voting, by the way, is a bit like endorsing them on their agenda. If everyone refused the vote and didn't vote, and many people are too freaked out to ever take this chance, but how has voting really helped you? They pivot their agenda. Everyone so wanted the end of Biden that they ran out and voted for Trump. You will so want the end of the surveillance states, creep out, roll out that he is quietly part and parcel of, while not talking about it a great deal, watching the power of Palantir and BlackRock, two companies that you absolutely don't hate enough. Alphabet, BlackRock, and Palantir are absolutely evil incarnate. Alphabet stroke Google should have been broken up into millions of pieces long time ago in any form of antitrust. You're talking about the two largest search engines, YouTube and Google, never mind Android, which is on more than 50% of devices, etc., etc. That one company can have so much power shows you, and that there was no antitrust, no smashing it to pieces, that BlackRock can steal everybody's proxy votes on every equity because you're all being encouraged to buy an ETF for this, for that, for everything else. And they've had so much power that they've actually had Gillette and various companies, Budweiser, all put out pro-trans, anti-white male marketing type inversion, perversion, freak out weirdness. Just shows you that they are flexing their power and they are showing you who's in charge. And deeply, if you're consciously not accepting this, your subconscious mind already is aware that something isn't right. Something isn't right. Maybe try not voting. Maybe try not voting and stop endorsing it. They will always tell you that it's poison and put the glass down in front of you. It's part of their karmic code of great peculiarity. You don't have to pick it up and drink it. You don't have to endorse either party. There is nothing there that represents your best interests. They often show you which one is going to win. So people do what's known as the illusion of control, choosing the winner. I'll vote Trump this time. It was quite obvious from the media coverage, the decline in him, that he wouldn't get in again. You haven't won by getting rid of a bad guy. You've just swapped one bad guy for a fresher bad guy who's going to advance a different bad agenda that'll give you the impression that stylistically things have changed. But meanwhile, all these things have been pre-planned. And all you're doing is pivoting like a ping pong ball between the bat and the table as it's being trapped down there. It's time to stop voting. It's time to stop being a citizen. It's time to stop paying tax to known pedophiles, frauds, and criminals that want to kill you and are using those funds to weaponize a prison that's there designed to entrap you. That's what it's time for. Unfortunately, nobody will, or very low numbers are acting on this. Everybody should be nomadic. Everybody should have should be, in America's case, surrendering their US passport. I know they're going to wait for the exit taxes, by the way, that comes next. You should have multiple residencies. You should be buying gold because it represents truth in money. And even though I think it might just have a pullback coming soon, but that's a technical point, long run, only further up in the longer run. But it might have a mini crash with this demand destroying event that I think is almost certainly very high probability and underpriced for this August, September, October period. So watch out. You might want to have cash at home. You might want to have long food. You want to start talking about homesteading with friends. But these are all a very reset discussion I'm having. It's not technical. I'm not looking at charts with you. We do all of that. And I'd like to have a different vibe, but I'm just monotoning, telling you ad nauseum, this is everything the world is showing me after specific observation for multitude of years with lots of consumptive reading on the specific topic and applying my mind consistently to what probabilities and regularly guessing right and keeping people out of vaccinations when this came and many other things that have proven to be accurate. So hear this message and hear it hard because it's coming at you. I'm trying to be the John the Baptist at great cost to my own self. We're all on lists. I'll probably be on an extra special one. God knows the price we will all pay if and when they win and they come sacrifice season for these Satanists and psychopaths. But it's a very, very dangerous world that is uploading. But at the same time, it's a beautiful world, the creation part of it that we were given, the sun, the sea, the mountains, the nature. And I suggest to you to spend more time in there and the animals, the honesty of a dog and a cat and natural animal instincts, and friendship, love, partners, looking after people, and caring for people. I think that's what you've got to do. And you've got to understand the dark stuff because many can't handle it, so that you can help look after them. Those that don't know, your children can't be expected to know some of the horrible things that I'm suggesting could be coming. But it's our job. Man up. It's our job. This is our obstacle course. This is to be your experience in life. And I think it's a beautiful life. And I'm delighted to have had my life so far. And I'm looking forward to more years. But who knows how it ends? I don't get to write the story on that. But I'll resist. I'll talk like this as I have done for decades. I'll continue to, because I resent those people. But at the same time, I don't spend my life in a state of rage and anger. That's them. That's you punishing yourself for the fact that there's evil in the world. You can't do that. You've just got to get on, live, enjoy, take the moment, and be your best version of yourself, and work hard and be honest and be principled. You know what? At a localized level, everyone around you will love and respect you for that. And you will still do well. I do well. I'm wealthy. You will still do well and be wealthy for being that person that I'm describing. But there will be attack vectors that will come your way through the status, in taxation, on your finances, in biological threats and many things else. And you just have to be smarter than them and keep surviving and then looking to help others to do the same. And that's where I'm at. That's my space. I've just described my own space. And I think it's everybody's space now. It's not my job. It's all our jobs. Pursue sound money, pursue principle. That's it.
I have said it better myself. Francis, thanks so much again for coming on, hearing your thoughts. And, I'm reminded of Teddy Roosevelt, so the man in the arena. putting yourself out there in the universe and, withstanding barbs and vitriol and things of that nature. So I know, people admire you, as do I, with what you are doing.
I have a little rant for you, mini rant for you. We get people that book calls to have a chat with us. And, we're an online business, but we actually want to speak to people. We have a phone. It's not like you have to pay for something online and you're anxious and you're waiting. You never get to talk to people. And some people sometimes ask, well, I don't know if we can trust you. And I'm like, we've been around since 2009 on that YouTube channel. There's not a single comment that said, hey, when I paid, they disappeared, or they didn't provide the service they say they would do. How accurate and will be, that will be determined by the markets and our skill at that time. But we get a lot of people that are say, but I would like to have met you in person. I say, well, I tell people where I am. You can come and see me. You can, often I'm quite transparent. They say, we're not sure, and all of that. And actually I say, what's happened to me from the general public? We've been blackmailed to pay Monero to forces because of what we say about certain supremacist parasitic classes. We've had our content copied. People try to sell it. This is all people came through our YouTube channel. Yet we continue to trust and deliver service. We have people want to report us. We've had people that were not even clients. When we block them on Twitter for saying something ugly, that go and write ugly things on Trustpilot, they didn't even engage with us as customers, but they just think they can be rude or offensive. And then when you block them, they miss having you. They wanted to punish you. They wanted to throw their strop, but now they've got to tell the world how bad we are. So, it's funny. But then you get all sorts coming out of YouTube. And the only thing that is consistent is our message is consistent. Everything I've told you is what we feel and what we act. And our marketing is consistent. And we've been here for as long as we have. I don't know how much longer, and we get great people coming from YouTube. So I see the world and I see how different people choose to react. And actually, it's not about me or us. It's entirely about them in terms of the things we say. And you see the different levels of humanity. The ones that rage and anger and want to hurt, and you see the ones that are grateful and say thank you. And it is the spiritual spectrum of the world in engagement. And it's fascinating because, as I say, we've got someone who tried to rip all our content off and tell us he was going to sell it for half the price we did, that he pre-recorded everything and is using Twitter. And you've got others that will say, you're an ism, racism, anti-Semitism, everything. And it's just a case of, here's our facts, here's why we say what we say. If it's an inconvenient truth that doesn't make us bad, it's justified in the following way. And you just let people be who they be. But the ones that are in our community are amazing and tend to see exactly what we've seen and have come to many of the same conclusions for themselves and are bettering their lives and are inverse gaslighting themselves by being surrounded by people where they don't have to explain their opinions and views, that there are attack vectors on certain groups of people, on our financial world, on a number of levels. There are absolutely destructive forces inherently in intent, not in competence, trying to destroy the United States and the United Kingdom and Europe, and the West is in deep trouble. And what is uploading is deeply troublesome. Isn't it nice to be surrounded by people that actually are full of principle and see that and are part of a community? And that's what we offer. Go watch our technical charts, a little bit of chart drawing if you don't like that, but you might not enjoy it. You might just enjoy the reset, but you'll see our trading and how we position for investing. And hopefully we can help you navigate this great transition. I think it gets worse before it gets better, but let's always bear in mind the sun comes up the next day, the darkest hour before the dawn. It feels pretty dark where I'm standing right now in terms of our trajectory, but all things will pass and all things will change. And I'll leave you with something a little bit more positive to hang on to there, but you have to see it through the night. You have to survive the cold freeze of the Arctic night to be able to get up and make fire in the morning and watch the sun rise. And I'm hoping to bring a lot of people through that process with me. And that's a journey. And I don't think it's a bad one. I think it's a good one spiritually. And I'd love to have you as part of that. If you want to engage, check out our YouTube channel. And thanks for having me on. And, take the message not as a doomer thing, as a challenge. The gauntlet has been thrown down. Humanity is what it is. The people that copy our stuff and want to try resell it cheap, and the people are so grateful for it and take value and apply it and build wealth out of it. You decide what you get. Are you planting bitter seeds? Are you planting productive seeds? And I think most people will actually get a lot. And I hope to be the one providing it for you. But thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Francis. I encourage everyone to check out themarketsniper.com. Francis, thanks again, and looking forward to have you on in the future.
Absolutely. Bye-bye for now,
Okay,
Christopher.
take care. Quick ask. Over half of you who watch the show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you've enjoyed the show, you're finding value in it, subscribing is really the best way to support the channel. It's, of course, free. It literally takes 2 seconds, and it lets the algorithm know that this content matters. And of course, my commitment to you is going to be that I'm going to continue to bring on great guests, refine those questions. And of course, I'm always receptive to your feedback. If there's certain people that you'd like to have on, or certain questions, or this, that, and the other that you'd like to have as part of the show going forward, things of that nature, please let me know. I'm pretty easy to access. Anyhow, that's my commitment to you. If you can subscribe, that would mean a lot. Thanks.